Master Tavern Keeper's History of the Old World. And so, we are here at last then, Master Tavern Keeper. We have, in your retelling of the tale of the dwarves' story, Stonebreaker and Strolva the Wunderver, reached this plain of bones of yours, this ancient resting place of all dragonkind. What happened next to the two slayers? Ah, yes, well, just to add a bit of a time frame to the story, it had taken the two dwarves a full 4 months to reach their destination, and though trial and tribulation had dogged them every step of the way, they had finally arrived. And speaking of dogs, this here plain of bones must surely be swarming with them. What with all them skeletons and all? What? Well, dogs like bones, don't you know? Yes. I'm fully aware of that. Them and a majority of carnivores, I might hasten to add. But I can assure you that the dragon's graveyard is far from some dog's den, swarming with our canine companions. It's much too dangerous a place for the living to linger, be they dog or man. Oh, what do you mean, Master Tavern Keeper? Ah, well, I'd be happy to explain. It's actually probably worth us taking a little time right now to look at the history of the Plane of Bones before we dive back into Strolvar's tale. A bit of background here will preemptively answer any questions you'll no doubt have later. The Plane of Plenty. I first came across mention of the Plane of Bones whilst at university in Nuln, studying the art, history, language, and writings of ancient Nehekara. I recall poring over an excellent copy of a map that my professor had inked, originally dating back to the time of Alcadizar, the Conqueror, son of King Artenheru of Kemri, and the last and greatest priest-king to have ever lived before the dark times, before Nehekara became an empire of dust and death. Anyway, as I drew my finger over the spine of the World's Edge Mountains on the map, I remember it coming to rest on an area called the Plain of Plenty, which corresponds to our modern-day Plain of Bones. Oh, well, that's not a bad name for it either, to be honest. Although, I reckon, if you combine the two names, you've a far more accurate portrayal of what's going on over there. Eh? What do you mean? Oh, surely, Septimus. Rather than either the Plain of Bones or the Plain of Plenty, the Plain of Plenty of Bones more accurately sums things up. Ha. Very witty, Cedric. Anyway, ignoring that, the Plain of Bones is, like the Wolflands and the Blasted Wastes, a desert land, although its once unspoiled vistas have been sullied by ground-up rock dust and coal from the chaotic dwarf mines of the Tower of Gorgoth to the north, as well as filthy, toxic winds carrying pollutants from the furnaces and factories in the northeast. Nomadic greenskins from the aforementioned lands too have left their mark on the Plain of Bones, using it as both a place to ravage as well as a place to dump refuse and detritus. The once beautiful coastline, at least according to ancient sources, has been befouled, its beaches slick with noxious poisonous effluents, and its cliffs streaked by chemical stains. Even more repulsive is this, where the sea of dread laps against the land. The poisoned carcasses of numerous sea and shore animals are piled high, and flies and insects swarm as though they were in Father Nurglich's very own garden. There is yet beauty there nonetheless. I remember my tutor, Ulrich Genscher, showing me a glass phial of sand from the plane of bones itself. It was mesmerizing. Oh, why, Master Tavern Keeper? What did it look like? Well, it was unlike your typical yellow or white sand. Rather, it was clear as crystal, yet also multi-hued, both reflecting and refracting the light that hit it, so as to resemble a rainbow in miniature. Genscher said that the whole of the plane of bones was covered in the stuff, something confirmed by my chat with Strolvar. Och, but it's not called the plane of rainbow-coloured sand now, is it? What about the bones? Is it covered in bones or what? Ah ha ha ha! It most certainly is. Eons upon eons of bones. Indeed, so much so that the sands are likely merely bone that has either become ground up to dust or is in fact weathered, petrified bone itself. The land is indeed dominated by ancient, gigantic, draconic rib cages that loom like hillocks, femurs the length and breadth of great trees, and skulls as large as a castle gate, all dating back to the time that living things first stalked this world. Interspersed with these are the far smaller skeletons of more recent dragons. Tiny things in comparison, though. The reason for all these bones is this. The Plane of Bones was once the resting place of the dragons of our fated place. The reason why they journeyed there to die, though, is completely unknown. There are fringe theories, but they're hardly worth entertaining. That said, dragons no longer go there. The fact that Skaladrak did was something that had not occurred since the coming of chaos, and I can only account for due to the grievous mortal wound it had suffered. The old dragon's graveyard was simply the nearest resting place. In the ancient days, all dragons had flown to the parched desert when death was near, lying down and dying when their flight was done. But all this came to an end when the polar gates collapsed and foul energies bled into many places in our world, but in particular into the dark lands and the corpses of the long-dead dragonkin out there in the desert. This turn of events saw the rise of zombie dragons, fetid, rotting creatures that still inhabit the Plane of Bones. With this change, the dragons stopped coming. The fate that awaited them, that of becoming a foul, hungering revenant, repulsive to their proud natures. And so, where do they now go to die? It is unknown, save perhaps to the dragon tamers of Ulthuan. But I've heard rumours. Some shipmates of mine claim that it is to the Dragon Isles in the Sea of Dread that dragons now fly upon their dying day. A place far from the corruption in the north, and dangerous enough to keep away all but the most foolhardy. Who can say if there's any truth to it, though, or if it is simply a ship's banter? Anyway, back to the Plane of Bones. The contaminating energy contained within the land has since drawn to it the worst elements of the old world, but in particular necromancers and vampires. A curse be upon them both. Ah, well, indeed. Anyway, these individuals trawl through the skeletal remains of the Plane of Bones like a bibliophile in a bookshop, searching for the perfect corpse to reanimate via the latent energy in the land itself, and then craft themselves a mount of terrifying power. And they do not stop there, for pickings are good. It is not just dragon bones that are there anymore. Look, what do you mean? Who else would go there to die? Why, no one. but many go and lose their lives nonetheless. Oh, ja. Who und why, Master Tavern Keeper? Well, as to who, all sorts. As to why, primarily it is greed that brings many to the plane of bones. Is it not well known to everyone that dragons like to hoard gold and riches? But can any of you tell me, do you know the reason why? Oh, yeah. Is it perhaps because they are like the magpie? They are drawn to shiny things. Shiny? No. Does anyone else have an idea? Oh, is it because they like rich bedding? Ah, well, who doesn't? But, no. Ah, Senior Apprentice Steiner, you're raising your hand. Is it because they eat it? Oh, yeah. Oh, Senior Apprentice, what a great jest. Actually, the Senior Apprentice is quite correct. Though the dragons do not consume it for nourishment. At least, not directly. Look, now that's an intriguing thing to say. What do you mean, Septimus? Ah, well, let me explain. But first, Heinrich, pass us that rum.